Don't do that. It's not working. Whew, nobody's here.
Is it not? No. The arrow's not working? Is the little... There we go.
Oh, we had 7.
Pete.
Try it again, Pete.
There we go.
Thank you. Record it. Staff announcements.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I want to point your attention to, there's a couple of revised reports sitting in front of you, items 18 and 23. And we get to those items. And secondly, we do have a request for a non-agenda item. It's a plat we heard several months ago. Title is The Heirs of Hazel Moss. They failed to get their notice of coverage before the plat ran out, and they've asked to be heard as a non-agenda item.
Anything else?
No, sir.
We need a motion to add them in as agenda item, please. Be item 26 at the end of the regular thing. Is there any objection? Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed no. Motion carries. Thank you. There'll be item 26. Consideration of the minutes of April 12th, 2018. Any corrections? 2012. 18, excuse me. Any corrections? Motion?
Move to approve.
Motion made and seconded. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Consideration of the consent agenda. Any commissioner wishing to pull an item for separate discussion, please say so. Otherwise, we will take it as a whole. Anyone? Staff?
Okay.
Excuse me, staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll begin with item 3, Curry Ingram Academy, performance bond for wastewater treatment system, $90,000. Recommendation extended current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 4, Clovercroft Reserve, Section 1, performance bond for wastewater collection system, $150,000. Recommendation convert to maintenance in the amount of $45,000 for a period of 2 years. Item 5, Farms at Clovercroft wastewater area, performance bond for landscaping, $64,350. Recommendation convert to maintenance in the amount of $19,300 for a period of 6 months. Item 6, Farms at Clovercroft, Section 2, maintenance bond for water, $12,750. Recommendation, release the bond. Item 7, Farms at Clovercroft, Section 2, performance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $300,000. Recommendation, convert to maintenance in the amount, in the current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 8, Fox and Canyon, Section 1, performance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $767,000. Recommendation, reduce the amount to $383,000 and extend for a period of 1 year. Item 9, Hart's Landmark, maintenance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $300,000. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 10, Hart's Landmark, performance bond for sewer improvements, $85,970. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 11, Kings Chapel, Section 4B, maintenance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $120,000. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 12, Kings Chapel, Section 6, maintenance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $135,000. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 13, Silverstream Farms, Section 4G, maintenance bond for landscaping, $19,800. Recommendation, release the bond. Item 14, Stevens Valley, Section 1, performance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $2,208,000. Recommendation, reduce the amount of $750,000 and extend for a period of 1 year. Item 15, The Grove, Section 9, performance bond for water, $34,000. Recommendation, release the bond. Item 16, Vale Creek, performance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control, $200,000. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year.
Maintenance bond.
maintenance bond, I beg your pardon. Maintenance bond for roads, drainage, road code, $200,000. Recommendation, extended current amount for a period of 1 year. Item 17, Yazdian property maintenance bond for landscaping, $2,325. Recommendation, release the bond.
Motion. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Any old business?
Oh, no, sir, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry?
No, sir.
Thank you. That consent went through item 17, item 18, non-residential site plans. Non-residential site plan review for Starnes Creek wastewater treatment and disposal on 169.28 acres located off Meeks Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting approval of a non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system for the Starnes Creek development, which will be submitted for consideration in the near future. The property in question is approximately 169 acres in size and located on Meeks Road. Staff recommends action on this item be deferred until the June 2018 meeting in order to allow the applicant sufficient time to acquire all the necessary off-site easements.
Thank you, sir. Motion to... I get a second? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 19, review non-residential site plan.
Mr. Chairman, I make a request that I please recuse myself from this agenda item.
Thank you, ma'am. I understand. Agenda item 19, revised non-residential site plan review for Terra Vista wastewater treatment and disposal system on 130.53 acres located off Long Lane in the 12th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A site plan for this use was approved at the October 2017 meeting of this body. After approval, a concept plan for Terra Vista, the subdivision the system will serve, was submitted for review. During the course of reviewing the concept plan, it was discovered that drinking water wells exist within 300 feet of the wastewater disposal areas in violation of the zoning ordinance. As a result of that discovery, the applicant has submitted a revised site plan in order to correct the violation. The applicant is requesting approval of a revised site plan for the proposed non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system in the Rural Development 1 zoning district. The proposed system will serve Terra Vista development, for which the concept plan appears as item 23 on this agenda. The county zoning ordinance requires a site plan for a proposed non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system to be approved before a concept plan for the use the system will serve may be approved. The subject property totals approximately 130 acres in size, approximately 8 acres of which will be utilized for the proposed non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system. The proposed system will utilize recirculating sand filter technology to treat wastewater generated by the proposed subdivision. The treatment system will be located in the west central portion of the site, approximately 305 feet from the adjoining property, which meets the setback requirement. The disposal system will be located in the northeastern portion of the site and also meets the setback requirements. A certificate of convenience and necessity has been approved by the Tennessee Regulatory Authority. A design development report and detailed soils investigation report were prepared by the applicant and submitted to the county. The county's wastewater consultant has reviewed these reports and has concluded that all zoning ordinance requirements related to non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal systems have been met. The adjoining property owners have raised concerns regarding the potential of the wastewater disposal system to impact ground and surface water in the vicinity and the sufficiency of TDEC regulations to prevent such impacts. As a result, staff is recommending that the wastewater operator be required to install, maintain, and report findings from various monitoring wells and surface water sampling locations in order to evaluate the effect of the disposal system on groundwater and surface water in the area immediately surrounding the disposal fields. A monitoring plan should be developed by the wastewater operator in concert with TDEC, and data from the monitoring locations should be provided to TDEC along with the monthly operating reports. A conceptual layout for the proposed subdivision, which depicts 115 lots, is shown on sheets C2.0 and C2.1 of the site plan packet. The conceptual layout is provided for illustrative purposes only. It is staff's opinion that the combination of distance topography and existing vegetation will serve to adequately screen the treatment system from adjacent properties. A landscaping plan has been submitted and approved. The site plan is in order, and staff recommends approval with the following conditions. Number 1, prior to submittal of the first section of the proposed subdivision, a zoning certificate must be obtained for the completed treatment and disposal system. Prior to issuance of the zoning certificate, the applicant shall provide the following. A monitoring plan approved by TDEC showing the location of monitoring wells and surface water sampling locations to assess the impact of the wastewater disposal system on ground and surface water in the area surrounding the disposal fields. B, proof that any required Class 5 injection well permits have been issued by TDEC. C, a letter from TDEC indicating that the non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system was installed and is functioning. D, as-built drawings showing the location of all system components as well as the monitoring wells as shown on the monitoring plan approved by TDEC, and a sealed certification letter from the design engineer indicating that said system and monitoring components were constructed in accordance with the approved construction plans and specifications. E, a letter from the owner/utility provider indicating that it has accepted said system and is currently operating same. And F, the posting of a performance bond in the amount of $120,000 for said system as specified by the county's wastewater consultant. And number 2, data from the monitoring wells and surface water sampling locations must be submitted to TDEC along with monthly operating reports. One additional item, Mr. Chairman, there's additional correspondence that we've received and been placed in front of you tonight.
Thank you, sir. Questions of staff?
I got a question.
Go ahead.
I have a point of order. I'm Mr. Attorney for the Vadens adjoining property owner. I have a point of order to raise and a motion to make a procedural motion, not to the substance of the matters.
You need to be talking to her.
I need to make a record, Commissioner, that I have 2 motions concerning this matter. They're procedural and points of order here. The first motion is to move that these plans, items number 19 and 23, there's no reason for those to be considered as separate plans any longer. They should be combined. They're an integral system. This wastewater treatment system uses septic tanks at each residence, which is pumped under roads up to filtration systems, which then is pumped back down under roads into the step field, dispersal fields. These are integrated systems and plans. They shouldn't be split. So my first motion is that items 19 and 23 be combined and that this commission discuss those as one subdivision plan and discuss it as one.
You want to answer that, Counselor?
As Mr. Pfister is not a member of this body, he's not entitled to make any motions or take any actions on behalf of this body. If the Planning Commission chose to take an action, they certainly can, but you cannot. And these 2 items are addressed as 2 different uses in the zoning ordinance, and that's why they are on the agenda as 2 separate items.
I need to make a record that I have requested this commission to discuss these as one subdivision plan because the developer is going to try to use the bifurcated presentation to argue against having the 100-foot boundary buffer apply to the step field. So I'm here to make a record, request that a motion be made that both of these items, number 19 and number 23, be considered together and discussed together as one subdivision plan.
That's denied. Have a seat.
Okay. I have a second motion.
No.
Point of order to make. I need to make a record, Commissioner.
You're out of order right now.
I understand.
You have no authority to be up there. Have a seat.
Commissioner, I'm making a motion that any material submitted after the noon deadline on Tuesday be stricken from the record and not considered by staff or by this body. I need to make that motion.
She just told you couldn't do that.
Well,
That information is now noted on the record, and it will be in the minutes, and it's in the recording that is being made at this meeting. So your point has been made on the record.
Point has been made of the record. I've requested a vote on both those items, and
And
point
again, you
has
have
been
no authority to make a motion. You are not a member of this body. You've made your point. The Planning Commission can act upon it if they choose to do so.
I'm just making a record. I'm just requesting.
And your
a
record
motion.
has been made. Thank
Okay,
you.
very good.
Any questions on the agenda item 19, wastewater disposal system?
We got,
Oh, Betsy.
oh, wait a minute, we have Pete we got folks, you asked for,
Betsy, hang on a minute. Come on up here. I'm going to talk to Pete first.
and Eddie.
Yes, sir.
I need to make a statement before I make any other statement that I've been a party of 7, 8 phone calls concerning this item. One was from Paul Vaden, one for Sarah Vaden Davis, and 3 from the lawyers, and one with Mike Madison. I've been a friend of the Vadens for 65, 70 years. Daddy was a friend of old Mr. Vaden for 75, 100 years before that. So I'm, I guess, a little bit prejudiced one way or another. But in trying to be fair and in trying to be honest, I can't sort out which engineer to believe, which lawyer to believe, which report to believe. Seems like so much conflicting documents have been put through on this item that it needs to be settled through a court system rather than us wasting time voting on it. Because I don't feel qualified as a non-geological engineer, and I got a thing yesterday from an engineer concerning it all, and I'm not qualified to ascertain these information. So I don't know how we're going to handle this, because I don't think anybody else here is much qualified to.
That's why we're going to have a discussion, Pete.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question of Mr. Mosley?
Sure.
Commissioner Mosley, do you feel that you are biased one way or the other, or can you act upon the items in front of you objectively? Because I'm asking, if you feel that you have a bias one way or the other, then I'm asking you to recuse yourself from taking action.
Well, I'm not biased to the point of refusing myself, but I'm as confused as a man in a silo trying to find his way out.
Confused is one thing, biased is another. If you're confused, that's for you to handle. If you're biased, then I'm going to need you to recuse. If you're not biased one way or the other, then I want to make that clear on the record.
I'll say I'm a long-time friend of the family, but people that have known me for years know I try to do things fairly and honestly.
That's all I want to know.
But I don't feel qualified to make a good judgment on this situation.
You can abstain if you like. Anything else? Is that it, Pete?
Huh?
Is that all?
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Crohan?
Yes, excuse me. Would somebody please clarify for me the monitoring procedure? Is the monitoring all done before the system is put into use? And if something happens that it's negative, what
Betsy?
happens at that point?
Betsy,
Sir.
I want you to sit down a minute. Let me get through
sir.
some of these things. Richard, can you answer some of these questions for us? Richard is Smith, our consultant from Smith, Sackman, and Reed.
So regarding your question about the monitoring wells, typically you'd install the monitoring wells before the system is brought online. That way you'd have a baseline to judge what the quality of the water is before the system is brought online. And then once the system is brought online, you would continue monitoring after that and see if anything in the water quality changes. And then obviously make the necessary adjustments that the data would require.
And is it felt that if there is negative reports come back, that they can be straightened out, or does it reach a point where the wells are condemned because of this?
That you'd have to wait till there was data available to make such an assessment.
I'm concerned about what happens to the party who has the well. If that well ends up being condemned, where do they stand as far as water for their residents?
Having had some discussions with TDEC, it's their opinion and ours that given the nature of the treatment system and the disposal field that's being proposed, that we don't anticipate that there will be any negative impacts on any of the nearby wells.
Richard, while we've got you up here, one of the things that's been in a lot of the correspondence has been the ability of the field to absorb the water. Could you discuss for a minute the loading rate and the soil's ability to absorb that water?
Based on the information that we've been provided, that the land has a capability of absorbing, the soils that are there have the capability of absorbing a little over 1 inch per hour of water being applied to it. The actual application rate from this treatment system would be around a little over 0.013 inches per hour. So roughly, the soils have more than 75 times the soils have, based on the loading rate, the soils can take 75 times more loading than is actually going to be applied to it by the treatment system.
Anybody else have a question?
Does that make sense?
With Mr. Sanders?
Oh.
Go ahead.
Well, Mr. Crohan kind of addressed the issue that I had. And of course, with the wells and stuff, you don't have but one opportunity to get it right, and that's at the first. And my concern is also the monitoring of it. And I was reading that and highlighted it as far as reporting to TDEC. And you know, once you've contaminated a well, and what's the next step, or what's the contingency plan to correct that if there is a correction, or if it's contaminated, it's lost possibly. So that was also my question: what kind of backup plan or contingency plan as far as once a negative report comes in to TDEC?
Again, that would depend on the data that was obtained, what the issue was. You know, that's far too speculative for me to make a judgment call on that. It would also require, TDEC would also be involved at that point, and they would be reviewing the data and also making determinations of what needed to be done, if anything needed to be done.
A different way to say that, Mr. Sanders, it depends on the element that's causing the problem, whether it be E. coli or copper. I'm just throwing out things, okay? And you got to know what it is before you can determine what you have to do to fix it. Sure. Okay, that's basically it. Anyone else have a question, Richard? Anyone? Brian?
Quick question about one of the points that was just made. It's not for Richard per se, but about the request for a variance to be below a 100-foot setback. From what I read in the reports, that's not being requested, or from either 19 or 23. He said that they were requesting a reduction or a variance from the 100-foot setback. And there's the only thing I saw in there about
Who is requesting a variance?
It was just stated as part of Mr. Pfister's comments, and what I saw in the reports, it was that they had increased the setbacks to be 100 feet, even though it didn't. That setback requirement didn't necessarily apply to
That's correct. That's
so,
where I was confused.
Yeah, I didn't mean that. I just heard something said, and from what I read, I wanted to make sure I didn't miss something. So.
It has been, no, Mr. Fisher, whatever, no. Sit down. This is not a public hearing, and I'm not going to put up with it.
I'm calling the attorney to clarify where the 100-foot boundary does not apply. You don't want me to clarify it because it's not across around the whole boundary. You want to explain what the difference is, or I will.
I appreciate it if you just take a seat, sir. Quit being obnoxious. Christie, You wish to make a comment?
If you wish for me to.
I see no purpose served. Anyone else have a question? Don, again?
Yeah, this is for staff, if I could. It mentioned in some of the correspondence they sent to us about 13.04 their step irrigation, and they said that the water would be, instead of our 50, normally 50, it would be 117 inches of water in this area.
I'm not sure.
And also the...
That's that surface runoff number you're talking about.
What, say that again, Don. I'm not sure what you're... So,
it said in...
What's it?
If it's correct,
what's it? What are you reading from?
I'm reading from the reports that were sent out to us.
Okay.
Okay. And it said...
From which one?
13.04.
No, from which report?
I'll pull that up for you. That's...
Don, that is related to the karst feature, and our response was that that's related to surface water and not subsurface application of wastewater. I think what you're quoting is about the subsurface loading,
right?
And I would refer that to this gentleman or the applicant who is here as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
Got one more.
Mr. Sanders?
You also have to, of course, I understood that the limited amount of water that was going to be in the field, but of course you have to combine the surface water or the water from above in a heavy rain situation to combine with all of that also. An inch an hour, for how many hours? You know, there's not much soils that can absorb an inch an hour for very long.
The TDOT regulations that you're referring to, or the discussion is sort of apples and oranges. For stormwater, they look at the regulations look at runoff, whereas the disposal in this case is subsurface. It's under the ground, so the two aren't. You can't necessarily say that just because you're getting rainfall on the surface that most of the time is just going to run off. There'll be some infiltration. Most of that will run off, whereas the water from the wastewater system is actually being applied to the ground and is sinking into the ground.
Other questions? Is the applicant here? Would you like to make a comment, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm Brian Eccles, representing the applicant from the Thompson Burton Law Firm. We had a lot of comments after seeing the supplemental material that came in. We believe, however, that those have been adequately addressed in the memorandum prepared by staff, particularly one by Mr. Madison, May 9th, the SSR Smith-Seckman-Reed, May 2nd, as supplemented by May 8th, email from Bo Butler, which I understand are in your materials. We believe that has handled all these matters very well and completely. I think what you're seeing is the confusion raised by materials that have been submitted that conflate, for example, stormwater and applications on a drip field. All these things have been raised as these specters of horrible things. There is also a conflation of things that the county considers versus the things that TDEC considers in its approvals. In each case, both TDEC and the county have reviewed it according to the standards to which should be applied, and have concluded that the system as proposed, and of course this is a site plan for this system, is proposed, meets those standards, and we recommend approval, and the applicant is in full agreement with the conditions of approval recommended by staff.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Where is she? Betsy? She wake up?
She's hiding behind the thing.
Come on, girl.
I could have used another cup of coffee, I guess. I'm Betsy Hester, and I live in Franklin, Tennessee, at 37064. I am one of the 24 county commissioners, and I represent District 2. I'm very familiar with even more land and environment around my 2nd district. I wish to speak on behalf of the taxpayers, and I wish to express my concern about the property in question. I have visited the property, the adjacent property, 2 times, on 2 different times, seen it under very wet conditions and muddy conditions. I wish to express my concern about the karst soil and the springs that are inherent in the karst soil. I have concerns about the hydrology, the drainage on the land itself, and the drainage from the wastewater system. I looked at a map of this particular development, and the wastewater system was a part of that map. I feel like this is a challenging development at best, and I don't know that I'm not an engineer, but I will say that I don't feel like there's enough land to provide for drainage for this wastewater. The lagoon is on a slope. I would have liked to have seen a topographical map. I have not, actually. That's mea culpa. But my question is, this wastewater lagoon, what kind of slope is it on? Is it going to handle the wastewater that is pumped to it? I do appreciate the considerations that staff has given this and the some of the situations that you have handled here. I would like to see a 100-foot buffer applied to the entire development and the wastewater. I don't like what I've seen with the wastewater diffusion coming down the hill, going underneath homes and property. That I really have a concern about that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Other questions or comments?
I have to comment that the 100-foot buffer does not apply to the step field in answer to Mr. Richter's question. It applies to the rest of the boundary, but not the step field.
Any other questions? Comments? You run out, Mr. Sanders? Motion? Anyone? Put 2 minutes in the phone. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes. While we're waiting, I'm going to make a comment. I don't particularly like this development either, but it is in absolute and full compliance with our regulations. And you understand your duty as it respects petitions in compliance with the regulations. Do what you think you need to do. Well, we're going to call this a draw. If there's not a motion out, it will fail for lack of motion. Is that your intention?
Mr. Chairman, that's not possible under state statute. It's got to be voted up or down, and if it's voted down, it has to have reasons for doing so. Otherwise, if the planning commission doesn't take any action, it is automatically approved after a certain amount of time. So there will have to be some action taken.
Move for approval of recommendation set.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Is there a second? It's going to be approved if we don't go one way or the other. Do we understand
Mr. Chairman,
that?
I have a statement to make, if I could.
I have a motion on the floor, Don. I need to act
Okay.
on the motion.
What is the motion on the floor?
For approval. Is that not correct, Brian? Thank you. Counselor?
If there's no second, then the motion fails for lack of a second, and you all will have to continue to deliberate until you take an action one way or the other.
I'm hungry. If you don't want to vote for it, then vote against it, as my granny would say. But make a stand.
Second.
We have a second. Fair to vote? Vote now. Record it.
We have a machine malfunction.
Somebody hit her abstention button, but it doesn't count as an abstention because it's a recusal. And that'll be noted in the minutes.
Well, where are we? 1, 2, 3.
That means that the vote failed and you are still without action. Because you need 4.
And Eddie. I think I'll just let you take over, Counselor.
Mr. Chairman, could Don make the comment you wanted to make earlier now that?
Yeah, that motion's gone. Don, go ahead.
The comment I was made, the reason that I would vote no on this is because you asked me and I've pulled it out now, but where I was getting the questions I was asking, we have been put on the table here so much information, conflicting information, that I don't feel, as Pete just talked about, I don't feel confident in voting for or against this at this point, and that's why I would have to vote no on it, and that's the statement I wanted made.
Well, I guess the way I look at that, when I get conflicting information, I look to those people that have given me good guidance in the past and rely on them. And that's the way I approach this.
Well, you have the soil they're talking about and they're asking in the state operation for a state permit. As the open space, this carcinid soil in the open space, can that be considered open space with that type of soil in there?
That's
because
that's the way the regulations are written, Don.
Yeah.
Robin, do you want to make a comment?
Well, I was going to kind of concur with Don and Pete a little bit. We had a lot of information this week besides our packets to read. Then we get here and we had a whole huge stack that, I mean, I got here at 5:15, so it was very difficult to read through it all. But skimming through it, to your point, there's a lot of conflicting. One says this, the other one was alleged CARES features. One says it doesn't have it. One says it did. But the reason I voted yes, sort of what Christy was saying also, and yourself, is that we rely on the staff and the engineers to work through this. So based on their recommendation is why I was going to vote yes, even though I didn't get a chance to look at everything. But obviously they got it earlier today.
No,
So
we've had that a few days.
Oh, I thought they got it earlier
No, I
today.
got an email yesterday.
Well, I got an email yesterday from Mike and then from, I think, the attorney, the Vaden's attorney as well. I thought this was new stuff that we just got today.
Well, it looked like the same stuff. Is there something new
Is
in
it?
there?
I didn't get to read through it all because I didn't have enough time. Is there new?
The only things that we received today were, there are 3 items that are on the desk, and they were provided by the applicant. Everything else that's in paper form here, you all have received via email.
Okay, so I've
believe
read
that's
all of
right.
that then.
Right, Aaron?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm like you. I don't really like it either. I'm all about a lot of different things, but infrastructure, of course. But it meets all the requirements, and looks like they've gone above and beyond to try to eliminate the things that the Vadens and the Kellys were concerned about, from what I read anyhow. Unless I'm missing something.
Hang on a minute, Brian. Yes, sir. Don?
The major thing, if the staff is content that everything is correct, the statement that the gentleman made, though, that I'd like to have answered is, if the wells, and that's a major point, if the wells are contaminated, worst case scenario, what happens to the residents? Will they supply water for them?
It's not a water well. It's not a water well. It's a monitoring.
Say that out loud.
Don, it's not a water well. It's a monitoring well. The well is to be there in place to see if there are any externalities occurring from either the drip fields or the other things associated with this project. It's not to protect, well, perhaps it is to protect the water, but it gives us an indication. The idea is, and there's someone much better qualified out here to discuss this than I am, you develop a baseline so you know what is going on subsurfacely as much as you can,
So
and then,
it's not affecting the residents' wells in the area.
I probably bespoke a tad, but the idea is the monitoring wells are to see if there are any
I realize
damage.
what's
Yeah.
monitored. I'm worried about the wells, if there's wells there that the residents have. Are they, if they're protected and the staff is content that they've met all the regulations, I will change my vote. But I want to make sure that the people in the area that have wells are protected. Because to say, if it goes bad, which it probably isn't going to go bad, I just want them protected. I think that we owe it to them.
Well, I misconstrued part of that, but do you want to answer the last part of that, Mike? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the
That'd probably be
last
a better
part
answer
was.
than I can give.
But just in general, Mr. Crohan, the regulations are developed by TDEC, and they address both the treatment component as well as the disposal component. The county has also developed some additional requirements that other jurisdictions don't have, one of which is the requirement for the storage pond, so that in the unlikely event that the soils can't be used for one reason or another, the treated effluent can be diverted to that storage pond while problems are getting fixed. As Mr. Horn said, the monitoring wells is a requirement that we've added just to make sure that that the wells on the adjoining property will be protected. The data that's obtained from those wells will be required to be submitted to TDEC, along with what they're already required to submit to TDEC in terms of their monthly operating statements. And so if there are problems that are detected in those monitoring wells, then TDEC will have that information, and as the permitting authority, they'll be able to require changes to the system to address that.
Okay, but all this done, what protection will this protect the wells? In other words, are they able to protect the wells from that problem happening? That's all I'm asking.
And I guess that
if staff is content that the people will be protected, I'm fine with changing my vote, but I just want to make sure the people in the area are protected, that's all.
Yes, sir,
That's all I'm
of
asking.
course, and we are too, and the county uses a wastewater consultant, Smith Seckman Reed. Mr. Chappelle is here this evening, but they're satisfied from the technical side of things that this treatment system and disposal system will protect the adjoining property owners.
Okay, thank you.
Christie, do I get to start over on motions?
Until you get an action that has a 4 vote, yes, you do.
I need a motion. It'll be a voice vote. We can't put this in the computer but one time.
Move for approval with recommendation of staff.
Mr. Lackey?
Yes, ma'am?
May I say something, please, sir?
Briefly?
Very briefly.
Thank you.
I would like to have some kind of stipulation that protected the Vaden's wells from this wastewater. I understand that they do have access to city water. I don't know whether that's through Mill Crofton or whatever, but it's city water. That there be some kind of proposal that protects them to the point that the lines, that the expense of putting their property on city water be in some kind of escrow account so that they are provided for not only next year but 20 years from now. Thank you.
Betsy, I don't think I have the authority to do that. Counsel?
It's just what I wanted to say.
Well, that's a little bit on the fly for me to be able to answer that. Can I research it for a minute while y'all are talking?
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed?
Applicants, they like the stuff, but they don't,
2.
and they haven't.
Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 20, final plat review for Hawthorne, large lot easement subdivision containing 5 lots on 28.7 acres located off Paintonsville Trinity Road in the 12th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The property is approximately 20 acres in size and is located off Paintonsville Trinity Road, approximately 3/4 miles south of Crowder Road. The applicant is requesting approval of a large lot easement subdivision in order to create 5 lots off a new 50-foot ingress-egress utilities easement. At this time, staff recommends that this item be deferred until the June 14, 2018 meeting to allow the applicant additional time to address all requirements.
Motion to defer. Motion made and seconded. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. And item 21, final plat review for Vernon property, large lot easement subdivision located, containing 2 lots on 36.62 acres located off Vernon Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The property in question is approximately 37 acres in size and is located off Vernon Road, approximately 1/3 miles south of Pleasant Hill Road. The applicant is requesting approval of a large lot easement subdivision in order to create the third and fourth lots off an existing and extended 50-foot ingress-egress utilities easement. The site slopes steeply upward generally from the east to the west. The site is also heavily wooded, except for a large clearing at the northern end around the existing buildings. All zoning ordinance requirements, including those regarding the protection of natural resources, have been met. The applicant is proposing individual septic systems for the lots, and the Williamson County Department of Sewage Disposal Management has approved the request. Water will be provided by the Nolensville College Grove Utility District, as no fire hydrants are proposed and as none are currently located within 500 feet of the building envelopes. The building envelopes have been separated by 200 feet. The plat is in order, and staff recommends approval.
Questions of staff? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Prepared to vote? Vote now. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. That was 20. that was? I'm losing it. Agenda item 22, final plat review for Lewisburg Pike subdivision, large lot easement subdivision containing 5 lots on 53 acres located off Lewisburg Pike in the 2nd voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property is approximately 38 acres in size and is located off Lewisburg Pike, approximately 1/4 mile north of Bethesda Duplex Road. The applicant is requesting approval of a large lot easement subdivision in order to create 5 lots off a new 50-foot ingress-egress utilities easement. At this time, staff recommends that action on this item be deferred until the June 14th, 2018 meeting to allow the applicant additional time to redress all requirements.
Additional time. And say that again, Aaron. I was reading behind you. Say Lincoln. I'm sorry.
The last sentence. At this time, staff recommends that action on this item be deferred until the June 14th, 2018 meeting.
This is the 3rd one tonight. Motion to defer.
Yeah.
Motion made and seconded. Prepare to vote. Record it. Motion carries. Thank you. 22, final plat review for Lewisburg Pike subdivision, large lot easement subdivision containing 5 lots. I did it again. 23, concept plan review for Terra Vista subdivision containing 115 lots on 122.61 acres located off Long Lane in the 12th voting district. Staff?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to recuse myself of this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am reading from a revised report that is placed in front of you. A concept plan for this development appeared on the March 2018 Planning Commission agenda, and the required public hearing was held at that time. Prior to that meeting, staff received several pieces of correspondence related to the concept plan. This correspondence, which was from various representatives of the adjoining property owners, outlined a number of concerns related to the project. Per staff's recommendation, the Planning Commission deferred action regarding this item until the April 2018 meeting so that staff could sufficiently evaluate the various issues that were raised. Staff has completed its review of the issues raised by the adjoining property owners in the correspondence received on March 6th, and staff's findings related to these issues are outlined in the memorandum attached herein as attachment 23-6. During the course of staff's analysis, it became apparent that one of the issues raised, the fact that there were drinking water wells located within 300 feet of the wastewater disposal area, would necessitate a revision to the non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal site plan, which was originally approved in October 2017. Staff also determined that any revision to the wastewater site plan would need to be approved before the concept plan could be approved. Therefore, at the April 2018 meeting, staff recommended action on the concept plan be deferred until the May 2018 meeting, thus allowing the revised wastewater treatment site plan to appear on the same agenda as the concept plan. The revised wastewater system site plan was considered as item 19 on this agenda. In response to concerns raised, there have also been some changes made to the layout of the proposed subdivision that are worth noting. The concept plan under consideration depicts a reduction of lots. Plan under consideration consists of 115 lots instead of the 116 originally proposed. Other changes include showing a stream along the eastern boundary of the development behind lots 94 through 97. This stream was initially characterized by the applicant's hydrological consultant as a wet weather conveyance, and this characterization was accepted by the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. However, the applicant's consultant has since reevaluated this channel and has now characterized it as a stream requiring a waterway natural area buffer. The buffer has been provided and the layout of the subdivision has been modified accordingly. Additionally, in response to the comments received from an adjoining property owner, staff asked the developer to revise the layout in order to provide more separation between building lots and the adjoining property to the east, as well as along the frontage of the development. The applicant has complied with this request and has increased this separation from a minimum of 50 feet to a minimum of 100 feet. The subject property totals approximately 122 acres in size and is located along Long Lane, 1/2 mile southeast of Carruthers Parkway. Property consists of rolling hills and steep slopes, which are predominantly located in the southern and western portions of the site. Natural resources on the property include woodlands, moderate and steep slopes, and streams. Approximately 54% of the site is covered in tree canopy. Resource protection standards have been met. The proposed development consists of 115 lots, which range in size from 10,000 square feet to just over 1 acre. The overall density is 0.93 dwelling units per acre, and approximately 56% of the site will be preserved in open space. The subdivision is not subject to the recently adopted 100-foot buffer requirements because the concept plan was submitted prior to that requirement going into effect. However, as was noted earlier in this report, the applicant has revised the layout to increase the separation between proposed building lots and development boundaries along the eastern and northern sides of the property. Access to the development will be provided by 2 entrances from Long Lane. The County Highway Department has determined that adequate site distance exists at both entrances and has approved their locations. The property is subject to the traffic shed methodology as outlined in Article 19 of the zoning ordinance. The traffic shed analysis indicates that the proposed number of lots is within acceptable limits based upon the capacity of existing roadways. Because this development will generate 50 or more peak hour trips, the applicant was required to provide an intersection analysis, which includes an evaluation as to the necessity of turn lanes into the development. This intersection analysis indicated that turn lanes are not warranted based on traffic volumes. The County Highway Department reviewed the intersection analysis and concurred with the findings contained therein. However, the applicant has agreed to install a right turn deceleration lane at the primary entrance to the development. This deceleration lane is shown on the concept plan and will be incorporated into the conditions of approval for the development. The intersection analysis, which has been revised to reflect this deceleration lane, is attached to this report. Water service will be provided by Mill Crofton Utility District. Wastewater will be handled via a non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal system, which appeared as item 19 on this agenda as item 19. It should be noted that once detailed construction and engineering plans are prepared in conjunction with the submittal of a preliminary plat, changes to the layout, including the potential for a reduction of lots, may be necessary. A landscaping plan will also be required. So long as item 19 of this agenda is approved, staff recommends approval of this concept plan with the following conditions. A number of items must be addressed with future submittals. Preliminary plat must address the following. Number 1, submission of roads, drainage, and erosion control plans for review and approval by the county engineer. Number 2, submission of water plans for review and approval by Mill Crofton Utility District. And number 3, submission of the applicable construction plans for the required wastewater treatment and disposal facilities to TDEC, the county's consultant, and staff. The final plat must address the following. Number 1, prior to final plat submittal for the first section of the proposed subdivision, a zoning certificate must be obtained for the completed treatment and disposal system. Prior to issuance of the zoning certificate, the applicant shall provide the following. A monitoring plan approved by TDEC showing the location of monitoring wells and surface water sampling locations to assess the impact of the wastewater disposal system on ground and surface water in the area surrounding the disposal fields. B, proof that any required Class 5 injection well permits have been issued by TDEC. C, a letter from TDEC indicating that said system to serve this development was installed and is functioning. D, as-built drawings showing the location of all system components as well as the monitoring wells as shown on the monitoring plan approved by TDEC, and a sealed certification letter from the design engineer indicating that said system and monitoring components were constructed in accordance with the approved construction plans and specifications. E, a letter from the owner/utility provider indicating that it has accepted said system to serve this development and is currently operating same. And F, the posting of a performance bond in the amount of $120,000 for said system as specified by the county's wastewater consultant. 2, proof that any required Class 5 injection well permits have been issued by TDEC. 3, prior to the submittal of the first preliminary plat of this subdivision, the well located on site shall be abandoned and capped, and evidence from the appropriate state regulatory authority shall be provided. 4, the HOA documents must be submitted with the final plat, and the approved HOA documents must be recorded concurrently with the recording of the final plat. 5, establishment of a performance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control. 6, establishment of a performance bond for water improvements in favor of Millcrofton Utility District. 7, establishment of a performance bond for the wastewater collection system. 8, submission of landscaping plans and establishment of a performance bond for landscaping. 9, execution of a stormwater maintenance agreement and submission of an operation and maintenance plan for stormwater improvements. And 10, submission of the approved final plat in DWG format on recordable media based on the Tennessee State Plan Coordinate System prior to signature and recording of the plat. Mr. Chairman, one additional item. The correspondence we received for this item has also been placed in front of you tonight.
Thank you, sir. Questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, again, as a procedural matter, I need to make a record that request a vote to combine number 19, number 23, and to strike from the record from consideration all materials submitted after the Tuesday noon deadline, just for the record.
Record's getting full.
That's noted on the record. Christie.
Discussion, questions, comments? The applicant wish to make a comment?
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, Brian Eccles, representing the applicant. Because these are separate matters, I will reiterate my comments from before that we believe that all matters raised by the applicant and raised by the staff and raised by other parties in the public have been adequately addressed by the most recent comments and memorandum of staff. I believe it's included as item attachment 23-6, but it is the 9 May memorandum from Madison, May 2nd letter from Smith Seckman Reed, and a May 8th email from Mr. Bo Butler with Smith Seckman Reed. As before, we believe that, as staff recommendation reflects, we have met all standards. We have complied with those and gone above, and as noted by staff, and we are in agreement with all conditions, including the most recent condition of capping the existing well on the property itself, and we ask for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments, thoughts? We have a motion. Is there a second? Is there a second? Counsel, would you like to explain the procedure again?
Sure. If there's not an action taken, then this item will be automatically approved. So you need to take an action either to approve or disapprove, and it has to be a vote of at least 4 for the motion to pass. If there is a motion without a second, then the motion dies for lack of a second, and there will still need to be action taken through a motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote. Vote now. Record it.
Start voting. See, Sharon, yeah, we got to kill, and Don's got to vote too.
Now record it.
Wait, Don vote.
I'm sorry. One. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 24, Kings Chapel, Section 8, containing 53 lots on 38.30 acres, located off Kings Chapel Camp Pass Road in the 5th voting district. Hold up, please. Go ahead, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we've actually received a request from the applicant to defer this item until the June meeting, and staff concurs with that request.
Motion. Motion made and seconded to defer. Prepare to vote. Vote now. Agenda item 25.
Okay, sorry.
Agenda item 25, resolution appropriating and amending 2017-18 Planning Department budget by $150,000 for consulting fees to update Williamson County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Beginning this summer, the county will begin the process of updating the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. This update is necessary based on the amount of time that has elapsed since the adoption of the existing comp plan in 2007. Additionally, updating the comp plan was one of the key recommendations from the Comprehensive Traffic Strategy Report, which was completed in the fall. This County Commission resolution appropriates funding for this update, with the funds to come from unappropriated county fund balance. In addition to the Planning Commission, Mayor Anderson has asked that the county's Highway Commission, I should have said, and Budget Committee consider the resolution for recommendation to the County Commission.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Is this on the machine?
Yes.
Oh, prepare to vote. Vote now. Motion carries. Thank you. And again, item 26 was the final plat, and I have no info on it. Joe, can you tell them? Oh, thank you.
I'll take one then.
Is this yours, Aaron?
This is mine.
Oh, go ahead, Lincoln.
Okay. This is an item that went to the Planning Commission, I think about a month ago. They failed to get their NOC, and so they were not able to get it recorded in time, and the Planning Commission's approval expired, and now they would like to have it reapproved.
That's the extent of it.
Yep.
Your motion? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Prepare to vote. Oh, it's not on there.
No, it's not on there.
You're right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. And Ms. Council?
I had to speak a lot more tonight than I normally would like to do. I wanted to bring up, as you all know, you have to have the 4 hours of continuing education every year. Given the fact that there's been so much discussion lately about conservation subdivisions and lot size and open space, Mike and I were talking today and thought perhaps it would be very helpful if we had a training session next month to talk about those very things. So, can you all do before the meeting? That would be 4:30, which is a little early since we've moved the meetings up, and we would do dinner like we normally do, and it would be a presentation, but also a discussion for all of us. But it would be where you could get at least 1 hour for this year of your training. So I just wanted to bring that up for discussion purposes.
Is 4:30 too early before next meeting? Pete, you okay with that? Us retired guys can be here. Don? Yeah. Brian? Robin? Okay.
Eddie?
Can somehow they remind old people like me,
I'll call you and bug you.
4:30? No. She calls me at daylight to come to a 5:30 meeting. I don't know what the deal is. But please, I need a reminder call because I'm the one that wanted to have the workshop. Thank you. A motion to adjourn after this protracted meeting. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.